Alright, what I'm going to be doing with you today is going through the heart model to help you learn where some of the structures are that you've been studying so that you can be prepared to identify some of these things on an actual three-dimensional model. So here you have in front of you our actual 3D model of the heart, the one we typically use. And so each human heart typically will have 4 chambers, and on this model you locate those chambers by opening up these doors and revealing the hollow spaces inside. So if I turn this a little bit, here we can see there's our right atrium. Remember, we're on the right side over here, left side is over there. So right atrium, and this chamber here is the right ventricle. And then as we rotate this back, you can see the counterparts. Here's the left atrium, and this chamber here represents the left ventricle. So that's where those would be. Sometimes identified by the actual open spaces themselves, and sometimes you might just wish to identify generally where they are from the closed up model. So again, right atrium would be under here, the left atrium would be here, left ventricle, and right ventricle. Alright, if we open this back up again, then we should be able to view the 4 different valves that help control the flow of blood through the heart so that it doesn't go backward at any point. Over here on the right side, the first one we would encounter would be one of the AV valves. So this flap of white right here that you see, this would be the right AV valve, or sometimes called the tricuspid valve. So that's indicated here on the model. And then you can see these little strings attached. Those are the tendinous cords that anchor it to the bottom of the ventricle and make sure that this valve only opens one way and blood flow cannot push its way back here. Those cords will pull tight and close the cusps of the valve. The next one in sequence would be this pulmonary valve right here on its way up into the pulmonary trunk, which we'll come back to in just a little bit. So that's the pulmonary valve. As I turn this, the third one we might talk about here would be the left AV valve, or the bicuspid valve, or the mitral valve, and again has those tendinous cords, those strings coming off of it to the base of the ventricle. And then the last one for this model is buried a little bit. Of course, that's how it really is. If I lift this up, you can see, let me bring it a little bit closer and see if we can move that. Tucked away back behind this AV valve, there's our aortic valve. It's kind of dim in there, but that's the aortic valve back in there that allows blood to exit the left ventricle into the aorta, but prevents it from coming back down again when the ventricle relaxes. So those are the 4 valves that go along with the 4 chambers. And so what that leaves us with then would be making sure we know about the major blood vessels that attach to the heart, either bringing blood to it or carrying blood away. On this model here, this would represent the superior vena cava. You can see where my pencil is right there. And it comes from the merging of 2 moderately sized veins, the left brachiocephalic vein here and the right brachiocephalic vein here. That blood then goes into the right atrium. Here is its counterpart, helping to drain the lower part of the body and bring blood to the right atrium from below. This is the inferior vena cava on this model. So superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Then the blood is in those chambers and valves for a little while. And the right side's job is to send blood out to the lungs to go get oxygenated. And so here's how it travels away to do that job. This is the pulmonary trunk right here, this large blood vessel. And at its peak, you can see it this way, at its peak it branches to carry blood out to each of the lungs. Here we have the left pulmonary artery and the right pulmonary artery that's tucked away under there. Okay. The blood is out to the lungs, it does its gas exchange while it's out there, and then it needs to return to the heart to get a second pumping to get delivered out to the body. So that's where these come in. Over on this side, this is the end of the story for how the blood gets back to the left atrium from the lungs. These are the left pulmonary veins, and their counterpart would be this pair of right pulmonary veins. And even though they're coming from very different locations, they do converge and bring blood over here to this left atrium. So they're both connected to it. Then the blood passes down from the left atrium to the left ventricle through the aortic valve, and then here we have the aorta itself, this large red vessel. The aorta is described, the regions of it, based on what kind of it's doing. This beginning part is called the ascending aorta. It then makes an arch of aorta, or the aortic arch, and then over here we call this the descending aorta, as it begins to turn the corner and go down. The aorta has three major branches off of it. This is the brachiocephalic trunk, this is the left common carotid artery, and this is the left subclavian artery. Some last couple things to help you interpret on here. The heart tissue itself is not able to benefit from all of that blood flowing through its chambers, so the walls of the heart need their own system for supplying blood. And that's what the coronary arteries are. So if I open this right atrium up just a little bit, here we have this kind of thin red vessel right here going down between the right atrium and the right ventricle on the surface of the heart. This is called the right coronary artery, and that's one of the structures you need to know, right coronary artery. Then as we turn this more toward the center, this would be the LAD coronary artery, the left anterior descending coronary artery, and then off here, its partner going to the left side is the circumflex branch of the left coronary artery. So the circumflex coronary, the LAD coronary artery, and then over there the right coronary artery. The last thing we have for you then is to just understand that we need to be able to use the term interventricular septum, which is what you call the wall between the two ventricles. So this thick layer of tissue right in here is the interventricular septum. So hopefully that helped for you to interpret the pictures and the structures, and you know a little bit more about the heart now.